Joining me now is former White House Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor at Bondi Partners, Mick Mulvaney. Mick, let's get right into the Baltimore bridge disaster. And I want to ask you about this, another gaffe from the leader of the free world. In an attempt to express his sadness over the bridge collapse, Biden made up a complete lie. Have a listen to this.
At about 1:30, container ship struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which I've been over many, many times commuting from the state of Delaware in our train or by car.
Mick, this bridge had no train line, but this is another one of these sort of weird things where he tries to connect himself to a disaster with some weird made-up personal story. Why is he lying about things like this?
Yeah, James, I don't know if he's lying or if he's just remembering things wrong. Either way, it's not very presidential. You're right. I guess his heart is in the right place. He's trying to connect with people, but he just makes stuff up. By the way, he's been famous for doing this throughout his 50-year career in Washington, D.C. I guess people have just sort of expected it from him at this point. But yeah, it's embarrassing to have a president of the United States who doesn't know where he's been. He doesn't know, the bridges around here. It's added to a long list of embarrassments from the president.
Absolutely shocking. Now, let's move on to other news here, because in New York, Joe Biden has just shown up in Manhattan for what they're hoping to be a $25 million fundraiser with Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, which is going to feature every celebrity from Stephen Colbert to Lizzo performing there. Now, a lot of money, but are the Democrats, Mick, repeating their 2020 mistake of running a Hollywood-heavy campaign?
To a certain extent, yes. And granted, $25 million is a lot of money to raise. It's probably going to set a record for the largest political fundraising event in the history of the nation. But you're absolutely right. It sounds very, very tin-eared. Plus, James, but I think a lot of people are just now starting to realize, in that star-studded sort of alignment of all the people who were there, Joe Biden's not one of the stars. Bill Clinton will outshine him. Barack Obama will outshine him. Most of the celebrities will. He's going to be, as he has been for a long time, sort of an afterthought at his own event. So, look, they're going to raise a lot of money. That's important in this business. There's no question about it. Donald Trump has actually taken advantage of it by going to a funeral of a slain policeman just on the other side of the city at the same time. So he's trying to take advantage of this misstep by the Democrats. At the end of the day, $25 is a lot of money.
Well, it is, and I mean, Trump has gone, though, as you say, to that wake for the slain New York police officer Jonathan Diller. He was shot and killed by a career criminal. Is this going to allow him then to focus on this kind of gap between the elites in their big fundraisers and everybody else who has to deal with the sort of crime and mayhem and nonsense on the streets that, of course, took this police officer's life?
Yeah, as I'm sitting here talking to you now, the events are going on, and that's exactly the narrative you're seeing on social media, is that Joe Biden is out of touch. He's back off with his Hollywood friends. It's the liberal elites, and Donald Trump is caring about ordinary people. So again, Biden's going to make a lot of money, but I think at the end of the day, Trump will win this battle. He will win this day in the political battle for voters.
Now, just on the subject of Joe Biden and his, shall we say, mental faculties, this is a fascinating thing here. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was doing an interview with a Charlotte News reporter, and in the middle of the interview, she was asked about whether President Biden has dementia. Have a listen to this.
When I told a number of people that I was talking to you today, it was interesting, though. They all said, would you please just ask her, does the president have dementia? So before I move on from that, does he?
Mark, I can't even believe you're asking me this question. That is an incredibly offensive question to ask. And with that, thank you so much, Mark. Have an amazing, amazing day.
Wow. She hung up. Wow.
Mick, KJP wasn't happy there, and of course that usual thing she does where she gets all outraged that somebody would ask a question that everybody's asking. Tell us what you reckon about this.
James, a couple different things. I work for that radio station. That's my hometown station. I know the gentleman who's asking those questions. He's one of the most mild-mannered, down-the-middle sort of newsmen you are ever going to meet, and to treat him like that you could hear the tone of her voice. It's the same sort of tone in his voice that Chuck Schumer had when he was castigating Benjamin Netanyahu last week. Democrats love to talk down to people who don't agree with them, and that's exactly what Karine Jean-Pierre said today. By the way, notice in her answer, there was a longer answer. She didn't say no, which I think is absolutely stunning to me. All you have to do is say, well, Mark, I'm not like the question, but the answer is no. What's your next question? But she didn't do that. So look, if she were a Republican press secretary, or if he were a Democrat or a woman or an African-American, they would be calling for KJP's head today on a silver platter. They'd be demanding, the media in this country would be demanding she be fired. But you know for a fact that's not happening.
We know it's not happening, and we all know why. Now, Mick, I need your help on another thing here. This is why I have you on every week, because I need your help with a lot of things. And this one here is RFK Jr.'s VP pick. It's a woman named Nicole Shanahan. She's a 38-year-old lawyer. She used to be married to the co-founder of Google. What do we know about her? And will this help or hinder the Kennedy campaign, which the poll numbers are suggesting is doing some pretty interesting things, particularly to Biden's numbers?
Yeah, what do we know about her? There's one thing we need to know about her. It's the reason that Kennedy picked her for vice president. She's fabulously wealthy. This is the woman who single-handedly bankrolled his ad during the Super Bowl that cost $4 million. That's why he put her on the ticket, along with the fact that I think everybody else probably turned him down. Look, here's the issue it's creating for him right now. Yes, she brings a lot of money, but the only way he's going to get on the ballot in a considerable number of states is by running as a libertarian. Now, he's got some libertarian sort of tendencies. This is a small government, civil liberties, just leave us the heck alone type of attitude. But she's not. She's a hardcore progressive left-winger. And I was talking this week to the chairman of the Libertarian Party in this country, the woman who will have a great deal to say over whether or not Kennedy gets a place on the ballots. And what she said was, look, they were kind of okay with Kennedy, but they really did not like the Shanahan woman. So it may prevent him from even getting on the ballot. So come back to the first conversation we had. Money is important in this business, but it's certainly not everything.
And, with that, though, tell us there seems to be an effort by the Democrats to keep Kennedy off of the ballot. Does this show that they're a bit nervous about what he's doing to Joe Biden's numbers?
Third parties in this country typically don't get a lot of traction. You're talking about people who might pull between 4 and 5% of the vote. In an ordinary election, that doesn't change the outcome. In an election that's going to be as close as this one is, it could change the outcome of the election. And keep in mind that you've got a situation now where just a couple thousand votes in Michigan could cost Joe Biden the election. And while Kennedy might pull from Republicans and Democrats, the tradition here is that third parties pull from the incumbent party, regardless of whether that's a Republican or Democrat. And that's why Democrats are slightly more concerned about Kennedy than the Trump team.
And finally, Mick, just want to ask you about the sad news this week that Joe Lieberman has passed away at the age of, I believe, 82. Fascinating man, the first Jewish candidate for vice president, I believe, and also considered one of just the great, well, to use a term, mensches of American politics and American life. Mick, did you have any dealings with Joe Lieberman? And is this an end of an era of that sort of politician who was so loved by so many people?
I hope not. I think we're in a period of time right now where folks like this can't get elected, but there's no reason we can't get back to that. This was a really nice guy. He just was. He was a Democrat, one of the nicest men you are ever going to meet. I remember bumping into him in a bar in Washington, D.C. when I was a new member of Congress, and we sat and talked for 20 minutes. We've worked a little bit more on the No Labels campaign. I don't work for them, but I've advised them on budgetary matters and so forth. And everybody sort of liked Joe Lieberman because he's such a good guy and a great sort of example of disagreeing with people without being disagreeable, and he will be sorely missed.
Mick Mulvaney, amen to that. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next week on the U.S. Report.